Alright, let's get right into it. Think about your day. I mean, really think about it. It feels like we are in a constant war for our own attention, right? Every single app, every notification, every little ping is practically screaming for a piece of our focus. And in his fantastic book, Deep Work, Cal Newport makes the case that this isn't just a minor annoyance. No, it's fundamentally rewiring how we work. And not in a good way. So, is this so familiar, that feeling of just being completely swamped, pulled in 100 different directions at once? Your entire day just feels like it's been chopped up into these tiny little pieces by a never-ending stream of emails, Slack messages, and social media alerts. If you're not alone, trust me, you are not alone. This is the new normal. And the numbers here are just wow. A study from McKinsey found that the average person working a desk job, what they call a knowledge worker, spends over 60% of their entire week just on digital communication and browsing the internet. Let that sink in. More than half of our time is spent not on the actual work we were hired to do, but on managing all this digital noise. And that leads to this huge problem. We started confusing being busy with being productive. We're always running around, entering messages, clearing our inbox. But are we actually moving the needle? Are we accomplishing anything that matters? Newport calls this the age of shallowness, and he argues it's crippling our ability to create anything of real, lasting value. So, to fight back, Newport gives us a really simple framework. He says all work basically falls into two buckets: deep work and shallow work. And just understanding the difference between these two is honestly the first and most important step. So first up, you got deep work. This is the good stuff. This is the magic. A great example is the psychiatrist Carl Jung. He literally built a stone tower out in the woods so he could escape his busy life. He wasn't on vacation. He was building a fortress of solitude to do the kind of intense, focused thinking that would, completely change his entire field. That is deep work. And on the flip side, we have shallow work. The shallow stuff that fills about 60% of our time we just talked about. Firing off emails, scheduling meetings, answering a quick question on Teams. It feels productive, sure, but it doesn't really push us. It doesn't create much new value. It's the busy work that actually prevents us from doing the deep work. And this really just lays it all out, does it? Deep work creates new things. Shallow work just maintains the status quo. One is like being a craftsman, the other is just logistics. One pushes you to get better, and the other just keeps the lights on. So the real question you gotta ask yourself is, which one of these columns is getting most of your time and energy? But here's where it gets really interesting. Newport isn't just pulling out a problem, he's highlighting a massive opportunity. Because in our distracted world, the ability to actually focus, that's not just a skill anymore. It's basically a superpower. And it's not just him saying it. Writer Eric Barker calls it the superpower of the 21st century. It makes perfect sense, right? As the world gets louder and more chaotic, the few people who can actually shut out the noise and concentrate are going to be the ones who truly excel. So why is it a superpower? What does it actually give you? Well, it unlocks two absolutely critical abilities for anyone who's affected. First, it lets you learn really complicated things fast. And second, it allows you to produce work at an absolutely elite level. We're talking top-notch quality, and at a speed that others can't match. So, let's get a little nerdy for a second. How does this work? Well, on a brain level, when you focus intensely on one skill, you're firing the same circuit in your brain over and over again. This process actually triggers cells to wrap those neurons in something called myelin. Think of it like insulation on a wire. It makes the signal faster and clear. Trying to learn something while you're distracted, that's like trying to build that insulation with weak staticky signals. It just doesn't work well. Now what about producing it in a lead level? That comes down to avoiding something called attention residue. It's a great term. Basically, whenever you switch tasks, say you stop what you're doing to check a quick email, a piece of your attention gets left behind, stuck on that last thing you're doing. That quick check isn't harmless at all. It leaves behind this residue that taints your performance when you go back to your main task. Deep work is all about minimizing that residue so you can use your full brain power. Okay, so the shell seems pretty straightforward. Deep work is super valuable, shallow work, not so much. Which brings us to this massive contradiction at the heart of the modern office. It's what you could call the great disconnect. Exactly. If this stuff is so powerful, why are open plan offices, non-stop instant messaging, and the expectation that you'll reply to an email in 5 minutes, why are these things the default? If depth is the key to value, why do our companies seem to be actively designing it out of our lives? Well, Newport points to three main culprits. First, the principle of least resistance. Let's be honest, focusing is hard. Checking Twitter is easy. We naturally drift toward what's easiest. Second, busyness as a proxy for productivity. When it's tough to measure someone's actual contribution, seeing them constantly typing and responding to emails that looks like they're working hard, it's a stand-in for real productivity. And finally, the metric black hole. It's just really hard to put a number on the cost of distraction, so companies mostly just ignore it. But, this whole argument for deep work goes way beyond just being better at your job or getting a promotion. It's about something much bigger. Building a life that is truly well-lived. And that's maybe the most powerful idea in the whole book. It boils down to this simple, profound statement. A deep life is a good life. The practice of focus doesn't just improve your work, it improves your existence. Think about it this way. Your brain literally creates your reality based on what you pay attention to. If you spend all day bouncing between your stressful inbox and trivial social media updates, your brain starts to believe that the world is trivial and stressful. But if you choose to focus your attention on meaningful challenges, on creating, on learning, you'll train your brain to see your world and your life as rich and significant. And psychologically, this plugs right into that amazing state we call flow. Research has shown that the best moments in our lives are when we're zoned out on the couch. They're when our mind is stretched to its absolute limit, trying to accomplish something difficult that we chose to do. Deep work is basically a recipe for creating more of these flow states in your life. So in the end, deep work isn't just another productivity hack. It's really a philosophy for how to live a good life in this crazy distracted age. It promises more than just a leg up in your career. It promises a richer, more engaged, and more meaningful life. And that leaves every single one of us with a fundamental choice we have to make. Every single day. Are you going to intentionally cultivate depth? Or are you just going to default to distraction?